Eric Burlison is a member of the United States House of Representatives from Missouri's 7th Congressional District. With a background in the private sector as a business owner, technology professional, and financial advisor, he brings a data-driven, accountability-focused approach to public service. In Congress, he serves on the House Oversight Committee for Accountability, including the Subcommittee for National Security, and previously served on the Subcommittee on the Department of Government Efficiencies, or DOGE, focused on identifying waste, fraud, and misuse of taxpayer dollars. Congressman Burlison has emerged as a leading congressional voice on UFO and UAP disclosure, participating in classified briefings and pressing for transparency on unidentified aerial phenomena, incursions into U.S. airspace, and Congress's constitutional responsibility to oversee classified programs and provide the American people clear, truthful answers. I'm back here in our nation's capital and I'm about to sit down with the man leading the charge on UFO and UAP disclosures, working to bring transparency on what the government knows, what has been kept from the public, and what the American people deserve to know. Let's welcome Congressman Eric Burlison to the show. Congressman, thank you for hosting us today on the Resilient Show. Being here in the Capitol and getting to meet with people like you is just it's a real honor, and I love the fact that we're able to take this show, talk to guys like you, and what's happening here at our Capitol, and then just broadcast it to your constituents and all Americans.
The honor is mine, really. It's truly an honor to have you here, so I'm excited.
Well, just following you, I realize we have a lot in common. I think we're very like-minded. I think the three most we have is we love Jesus, we love our constitutional freedoms, and we both are extremely interested in extraterrestrial life.
Right, yeah.
So I want to talk about all three of those.
That sounds good.
But one of the things, I want to start off with this because I have some amazing sponsors for the show. Two of them is Smith & Wesson Firearms, Vortex Optics, also Gators Eyewear, all that space. I actually have my bag here, Silent, which is a Faraday bag, which I think everybody who works in Congress should have a Faraday bag coming through here.
I do have one.
You do have one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well, great. Yeah. But one of the problems with you, and I was with Eli yesterday, is I can't give you the gifts because of your position that you normally get. So, but
everybody thinks we live this glamorous lifestyle.
Right,
it's
rock star.
They don't realize like that half of us sleep in our office and we fly commercial. I on the way up here, I was sandwiched between two people in the back of a plane. So,
hey, I flew yesterday into here, and I felt bad because I had several of my friends that were in Congress, and I actually had a first class seat. I fly so much I get bumped up every time. So I'm sitting in first class, and Congressman Luttrell walked by me, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" Like I'm like, "I'll trade." He's a big guy. I'm little. I'm like, "I'll trade seats with you." And then Senator Cruz was in the back right behind me. But yeah, you guys fly like normal people, and you come here, and most of you guys sleep on the couch. Yeah. So, and you can't get the free gifts like Smith & Wesson. But
right.
I want to, with Smith & Wesson and Vortex just being such great partners of mine, I love our Second Amendment. I think it's one of the most important freedoms that we have. You have done so much, particularly coming on as a freshman for your constituents in your state on the Second Amendment. Can you talk about some of the things that you did?
Yeah. So whenever I was a state legislator in Missouri, I led the charge on constitutional carry. And whenever I first started as a freshman state representative back in 2009, I remember talking to one of the gun lobbyist groups. I won't say which ones. And I said, I want to sponsor constitutional carry. And they said, you're out of your mind. We'll never pass that. It's a bridge too far. But I said, but I want to. And finally, so I had sponsored it, pushed it the first year, didn't get very far. It took me 8 years, and on the 8th year, I not only passed constitutional carry, but also I passed stand your ground law in Missouri, and extension of Castle Doctrine, and then we also made a lifetime concealed carry permit. And so I've passed a lot of Second Amendment bills, and then when I became a state senator, passed a bill that's called the Second Amendment Preservation Act that simply says that the states are not required to enforce the stupid federal gun laws. And that if the federal government if the ATF wants to enforce their dumb new rule on bump stocks or their new rule on pistol braces, that they're going to have to do that. We're not going to help them. Our local law enforcement is not going to help them. So I passed that law. Joe Biden sued it immediately, and so now they're redrafting that version today. And then now, as I'm a member of the federal level of Congress, I'm the sponsor of the bill to completely delete the National Firearms Act because it's just a complete, I think that we'll be fine without it whatsoever. And then I have a bill to abolish the ATF. It's a very duplicative agency. They overlap with a lot of our other law enforcement on the federal level. We have, and the ATF is just a total train wreck, going back all the way to Ruby Ridge, or what happened at Waco. You had the event that happened with the guy in Arkansas who was a community leader, upstanding civilian, but apparently he was just collecting too many firearms. And the ATF went in, shot his dog first. They always shoot the dog, and then they shot him, and he was completely unarmed. And so this agency is, in my opinion, out of control. They're the same agency that did Fast and Furious. Like we continually have to clean up after the ATF. And to me, it's an anti-Second Amendment agency of government. We should end it.
That's what I was saying. It went from like not enforcing crimes, but like impeding on our constitutional freedoms.
Yeah, and entrapping people. Most of the times you talk to, I know gun store owners who were entrapped. For example, the ATF would go in, imitate a married couple, and then slip the husband's card in, to purchase the firearm for the wife, for the quote unquote wife, and then suddenly they catch the guy because because the gun store owner didn't think, okay, well maybe they're just faking that they're married, and I need to make sure, right? All that kind of stuff. They just do those kinds of things to try to make criminals of people that are truly law-abiding citizens, right?
And most of which are responsible gun owners. They're not out. I mean, to me, is my take on it. To me, if the ATF really cared about crime, they'd be in downtown Detroit catching criminals who are doing violent crimes with illegal guns all the time, but they're not. They're going after people like
That's right.
myself and you and your, kind of everyday constituents in places like Missouri and Texas, where I live. That's who they tend to seem to be focused on.
Yeah,
Which is sad. It's sad. I think it's abuse and overreach.
Yeah,
of our government agencies.
we need them to be protecting us, not trying to make criminals of us. Yeah. Like Ruby Ridge, they tried to bait him into sawing off a shotgun, and they basically threw money at him to try to. They had an undercover agent trying to do that. That's the whole impetus for what happened at Ruby Ridge. And I think a similar story could be made about what happened at Waco, right? But this agency, just in my opinion, is duplicative, it's unnecessary, and they just cause a lot of problems.
Well, I would like to ask you this, because this is something that you've shown proven through action and be passionate about. Why do you think the Second Amendment is so important for our citizens?
I think you don't have the First Amendment or any of the other rights unless you have the Second Amendment. And I think that we see tyranny happen all across the world. And, this is a unique thing. What we're living through in the United States of America is a very blessed, sacred thing that doesn't happen very often in history. And the only thing that can protect it is individuals. And that's why, I think that, again, you won't have any other rights if you don't have the Second Amendment.
Yeah. It's not for hunting.
That's right.
It's not for hunting. Let's jump into the UAP, which unidentified aerial phenomena. You came in Congress as a freshman in 2023, and 3 years later, you're like one of the leading voices in Congress on the disclosure of UAP, the UAP topic. How'd you get there?
It's a weird journey. I was a financial advisor and a software consultant before I got here, and a state lawmaker. And I never thought in a million years that I'd be investigating this topic. It's never boring, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But I'm on the Oversight Committee, and so we had that first hearing with David Grusch. So I'm a dutiful member of the committee. I try to do my homework and try to do the best job that I can. And it was an intriguing subject. And what intrigued me about David Grusch's testimony, I come about this from a very skeptical perspective. And as a born again Christian, I kind of had the traditional view that there probably isn't aliens from another planet. It's all science fiction. It's nice and fun to talk about, but it probably the likelihood of them traveling of all places here, if there is life somewhere else, it's also very unlikely that they would point this direction and come here of all places. But that was my perspective. But what was intriguing was to read in his notes and in his testimony about that the prevailing view is that they're interdimensional or extra dimensional. They travel, they've been space time or they exist outside of space time. That really was intriguing to me and caused me to to engage David Grusch even after the hearing and just
Can you explain who David Grusch is?
So David Grusch is the UAP whistleblower that came forward, highly decorated intelligence officer, served in the Air Force and moved his way up the ranks, served his country for most of his life, and was tasked with investigating this topic, the UAP within the different branches of the Pentagon, and try to figure out what was really going on. And he did a great job. But the only way for him to be able to get that information to the public, what he learned is that there is a programs that are circumventing Congress, they're circumventing oversight, they're not communicating with each other, they're very siloed, and there's over compartmentalization that's happening, over classification, and so he reported all of that to the Office of Inspector General. And whenever we had a briefing with the Office of Inspector General, they could confirm, they absolutely confirmed that all of those things, the over compartmentalization, the fact that they're not sharing what they're doing with Congress, that they were able to verify that is the case. And to me, that made me wonder, okay, well, does that mean that some of the other things that David Grusch is telling us is true? If he was accurate about everything, all of the cover up and the things that are happening within the federal government, maybe he's being truthful about what's going on when it comes to this, legacy program, reverse engineering program of craft. And so it's been quite a journey to try to engage with him, try to go down the rabbit hole and find. So my goal, like at this point in time, I've had a lot of amazing conversations with a lot of whistleblowers, highly respected individuals from the top levels of our federal government.
These aren't kooks or crazy conspiracy people. These are people that worked in our government.
No, they're absolutely. The real fear is if they are crazy, why did we have them in such important positions?
Exactly right
In our federal government. So these are amazing, patriots that are coming forward. It doesn't necessarily, for me, I'm not going to believe it until I have something in my hands, or I actually see it for myself.
First of all, what's the name of the committee?
Oversight.
The Oversight Committee.
And we have a subcommittee that's now dedicated to this that I'm on, and that's the Disclosure Task Force.
And that's disclosure of UAP.
Of all government secrets.
Oh, okay.
So we worked to disclose the JFK assassination files, the MLK assassination files. We're working on the Epstein list. That was all coming out of that UAP, disclosure. This Government Secrets Disclosure Task Force.
So when you say whistleblowers, we're not talking about 2 or 3. We're talking there's hundreds of whistleblowers now on these programs.
There are. We've had about, I'd say 9 or so that have come forward in a public setting. They've been under oath.
Okay.
And then I regularly get people behind closed doors, people that will come in, have a private meeting with me. I'm not able to get into a SCIF because I'm not on the intelligence committees or the Armed Services Committee, but I'm regularly approached by people that have a story to tell, and it's helped me kind of flesh out what may or may not be happening.
Those listening, a SCIF is a secure compartmentalized information facility where you can have classified conversations, so you're able to have private conversations.
That's right. Yeah, and we have meetings in SCIFs all the time. I get briefings from ARROW, which is the all domain resolution office. It's basically the it was the entity that stood up as a formal office to investigate this, the phenomenon, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And so they're investigating this, and we have briefings with them. We've had briefings with the FBI. We have briefings with some of our defense contractors, some of our, some of our research centers. So we definitely do have some. We've been cleared to have some meetings and SCIFs. And as a member of Congress, you're cleared at the top, security level, but you have to be on. A lot of times, you have to be on the right committee,
Sure.
or you have to be
To have access.
to have access. And so, a lot of times, it's me getting permission from chairman of committees that I'm not on.
You say you won't be a full believer till you see it, touch it, but is there anything you've heard or video you've saw? I know you talked about videos of like things that defied physics. You've heard so many testimony. Like, is there anything that stands out that you could share with us that's like so compelling that it's grabbed your interest in?
Yeah. So where I'm at right now is I've seen videos that convinced me that there's something that's probably not. There's something that is not using conventional propulsion, and is a type of technology that I've never seen before. Yeah. And that whenever these videos are being brought to you by our own federal government saying we don't know what this is, then that has me really puzzled. What leads you to believe it's either an adversary, or it is maybe it's one of our private companies that's doing some experimental stuff that we're unaware of. Or it could be something that's completely supernatural that we don't understand. But I've seen lots of videos of objects, but at the end of the day, they're all blurry, right? I've seen some really interesting videos of things going at like incredible speeds over our military bases that should not be there, and that's disturbing. So even if you don't believe that this is like these are aliens or there's an alien threat or anything like that. Set that aside. The fact that we have our pilots that are flying, that are having near-miss events with these objects, the fact that we have incursions over our military bases, violations of U.S. law, is something that we should be hyper focused on.
Yeah, from a national security perspective, at minimum. Yeah. So there's rumor that I've heard that on July 8th. That President Trump's going to make a speech of UFO disclosures. Have you heard this, or you?
I've heard the rumor. I saw this. I think it was Laura Trump was talking about it on Truth Social. I saw a Truth Social post on it, and I hope that's the case, because I've been pressing the White House staff that this is something that Trump should be doing. To me, he campaigned, and he has been the disclosure president. He's the reason why we have the JFK files, because he issued an executive order that said to release the files now. And and even though people kind of like blame him about Epstein stuff, he's done exactly what he's been asked. He's released these files. In fact, this week I get the opportunity to go over and see the unredacted files.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that if you saw them yet, but
not yet. You have to schedule it, and so my meeting is going to be tomorrow. Actually, I'm spending several hours coming through. Hopefully, I mean, it's going to be. I'm hoping to get more time, but it's millions and millions of documents, so we're going to be coming through that.
I mean, I know you don't have any authority on this, but why are there still redactions? Why do you think there's still redactions?
It could. I mean, it's multiple legitimate reasons. One, you want to protect any victims that have not been made public, and people that are truly have no involvement. They're like an innocent bystander, had no real.
Their life can be ruined by. Yeah.
That's right. Or you have some classified information. So there could have been. I mean, we know that Epstein had connections to. I mean, he was at least trying to interact with different intelligence agencies.
To include our own.
And so that would be interesting to see what was redacted, maybe see the unredacted versions of that.
Yeah. Now, I guess for me, this isn't live, so it's not breaking, but But as we're sitting here, I think just yesterday we see what President Trump said all along, and it's kind of completely, in my eyes, vindicates him. He was one of the first people to report
Right.
that Epstein and Maxwell.
Elaine Maxwell.
Yeah, he was one of the first people to report Ghislaine and Epstein back in 2006
Yeah.
as being evil and their activity with children. So he said that all along, and now we see in the Epstein files that he actually did, in fact.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Epstein, what's clear is that Epstein wanted to put himself amongst rich and famous people.
Just like Trump.
Right. And so Trump, I mean, especially if they're both New Yorkers, and look, as an elected official, you get invited to, you know, these like receptions, fundraising events, things like that, and everybody wants to take your photo with you. I don't have time to do a background check. Or like, I don't know what the deep, dark secrets, you know, what's in every person's closet that they've got going on.
That's going to come out 10 years later.
Yeah, you have no idea. You just know that they, you know, it's a friendly person that wants a selfie. And so I think people need to just kind of put that in context. So I think at the end of the day, Epstein was a person who wanted to be, you know, rub elbows with the rich and the powerful and the famous. And he was successful at that. The question is, how many of those people got close and were part of this inner circle, and how many were part of? And I think that what we're learning about this last tranche of released documents is that there was some people that at least knew about his disturbing behavior.
Yeah, I know. So far, Representative Massey has already seen these files.
So that there's 6 names.
Kahani, yeah, there's 6 names that are actually. So if there's 6 names of people that would have actually committed crimes, and this has been going on, so these files have been so long, why do you think that we haven't
That's a good question.
Opened investigation or pressed charges yet?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And I mean, Massey tip that he can at least mention those names on the House floor or in a committee, because we're protected under what's called speech and debate clause in the Constitution. So, you know, that's why I was able to, for example, release the video of the Hellfire missile that was, you know, going towards that UAP object.
I want to come back to that. I want to ask you about that.
Right, because if I'd done that outside of the committee, or, you know, if I had put it on Twitter, that I could have been in deep trouble. But by being, you know, a member of Congress and releasing that, and honestly, I truly did not know if it was classified or not. It was a video that was given to me by an anonymous individual in a dead drop, and so rather than sit on the video or, you know, try to funnel it through the bureaucracy to
put it out there.
I want to be transparent, and I put it out there.
So at Massey, he's going to release these 6 names?
I think he's hinting that he's going to release the names if the DOJ is not going to do it.
Yeah, so that corners the DOJ to actually finally do something.
Hopefully, yeah. And now that they've worked on the documents, look, there are millions and millions of pages of documents that they had to comb through, and they were given a very short timeline to do that. They dedicated as many resources they possibly had, and she's shorthanded. I mean, Pam Bondi is very shorthanded. When she came in, of course, they had to clean house because you had a lot of the people within the Department of Justice and the FBI that had been using, you know, their office for lawfare, right, or political. They were partisans, and they were going after the president. I mean, those people were let go or shown the door. So the agencies are down personnel, and they're not getting any help from the Democrats in getting their nominees through. So she's not, you know, there's hundreds of nominees that are not getting through the Senate that would have been helpful in the process. So to dedicate 500 lawyers towards filtering the millions of pages it took a lot of effort and things that she could have been working on, investigations that she could have been following through on, but it took those resources off the table.
Yeah, for me, I'll
and I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think that's why Trump was angry and didn't want to go through with it, because I think that, in my opinion, Trump knew, and he wants them to prioritize going after all of the lawfare that happened. You know, go after Jack Smith, because the guy truly misused his office, and in a partisan manner. Go after Judge Boasberg. All of the people that abuse their position, and I think that to Trump, the Epstein thing he knows that the workload of this is a distraction, and he knows that no matter how much you release, even if you release everything, people are going to say, well, there's
more.
Yeah, there's got to be more, right?
It's so helpful for you to talk about this because you're the first person I've heard give some clarity to this, because I'm obviously a very strong conservative. I was a veterans policy surrogate on Trump's campaign in 2020 and in 2024. Like, love the president. I think he's one of the most impactful, made the biggest impact of any president in my lifetime, probably in history of our country. Like, so I'm a supporter of President Trump, but I, like many Americans, have been frustrated over this topic, especially when he's like, American people need to move on. Like it's shameful what happened to Bill Clinton. And I don't bring that up to be down on him. I bring that up because it concerns me that that it could hurt support, especially with midterms. So, like, to bring clarity on the why really helps, because I remember originally hearing Pam Boundy say, man, the stuff that I have on my desk is disgusting. And then it was like, there's nothing. And then Kash Patel, there's nothing. And it's like, we're like, there's something and we want something. And I think for the American people, right or wrong, we want to see someone held accountable to all these crimes, especially when children, like, somebody needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, I've met with the victims and looked them in the eye, and I voted to release these documents and supported the Massey bill.
And the president signed it.
It, right? And so at the end of the day, but I think that when people wonder, well, why was he kind of hesitant on this? It's because it totally derailed his Justice Department for the first, for a good, he's been in office just over a year. And it's derailed them for 6 months of that year.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought some clarity to that, because it was something I was wondering. I know a lot of people are wondering, and I do still think that, and hopefully the White House is hearing it, his office is hearing it, like people want. People are going to push for answers. I don't think people are going to let it go.
Right.
We shouldn't.
No,
we shouldn't. So I think the message has come across loud and clear to him, and I'm thankful for you and for those who have continued to push this. And,
it's something that look, this country shouldn't hold on to secrets, whether it's the Epstein, who's in the Epstein list, who's connected. It's not for this country to any government to kind of get, to keep that information
private. The people, it's ours.
Yeah, the government belongs to us, not the other way around. And that's why I'm interested in the UAP topic too. It's, if the government truly does know that we're not alone in the universe, what business is it of theirs to deny that from the rest of humanity? Right. That is not their right. So that's why I think it strikes at the heart of, does the government belong to the people, or do the people belong to the government?
Yeah. And our Constitution makes it pretty clear. I want to go back to the Hellfire missile, like something funner. Tell us what you saw in the video. Not everyone saw the video that's listening saw the video. And why? And when you saw it, why was it so important for you to? Hey, this has to be.
And so to me, it's an object that's kind of, it's a blurry, like nebulous object, but it's flying over the ocean. It was what it appears. And then what came with it was information that said that this was shot off the coast of Yemen on a particular date. I think it was October 31st, of last year. And then you're just watching this object flying, and it's obviously being filmed by one drone, and then a second drone that's off screen. You see a missile coming right at this object, and it literally bounces around it, or it really has what appears to have no impact on this object. The object keeps flying, and what's interesting is that there's 3 small objects that break away or pulled off of that object, but they continue to fly with it, and in its wake, or just continue to travel with it as it's going.
It's almost like it's protecting it.
I don't know what it is, but it's a very mysterious video, and it could be totally prosaic. It could be a balloon or some kind of drone, but it's moving pretty fast, and the people that the people that I've spoken to after I released the video, have said that that was that people that was a UAP. That was something that was completely unidentified. They didn't know what it was, and so I have it's an interesting. It's a very interesting video.
Can you talk about when we say reverse engineered, like reverse engineered technology?
So that's the theory of many of the whistleblowers that we have within the federal government. We have found, whether it was at Roswell or even archaeological digs, the Smithsonian pulls up something, right, that crashed here thousands of years ago or something like that.
Which we do know the CIA has a crash site retrieval program. I have friends that are in it, and
Yes, I've met people that were in that program. And so we know that it exists. And honestly, I'm glad that it exists, because even if there's no such thing as aliens, we don't want Russia getting our downed drones
right.
or satellites that fall out of orbit, right? We want to make sure that we're there on site and secure it and bring it in. And the other thing is, if a Russian technology crashes, we want to be able to get there get to it first as well, so we can reverse engineer what are they doing or what is China doing. So I'm glad that we do have crash retrieval, and I would hope that we have a reverse engineering program on at least prosaic enemy objects. But what is reported is that we have a reverse engineering program that's called the Legacy Program of engineering craft that are of non-human intelligence, and so you can follow that rabbit hole. That's one of the things that I'm trying to track down. I'm have requested from the White House to go to these locations where people report that there's, whether it's a research center and they're reverse engineering, or where they've got a vehicle, or where they have bodies. I've requested to be able to go tour these facilities. Now,
You got approval?
the White House has no problem getting, saying yes. I mean, to me, whenever I made that request, they said, sure. Well, now I have to go through all the bureaucratic, channels, and we do have our first site visit scheduled at the end of this month. But yeah,
So all these programs and all of these sites are under the authority of Secretary Hegseth?
yes, and within some of these sites, they are the Department of War, but also you may have intelligence agencies that are involved. Some of them you have private companies that are on site, and so that's what I'm specifically trying to get to. That the rumors are that you've got, whether it's MITRE or EGG or or it could be Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, Raytheon, you name it, that they have at least some components of craft that they're reverse engineering.
When you say non-human intelligence, that's it could be pretty broad. What's your particular
So
view
it could
of what
be
non-human
anything.
intelligence is?
Yeah, I mean it truly, it's something that's created by not humans, right? So it could be, it could be some kind of intelligence that we're not aware of that's on that's surviving this planet, maybe living deep under the oceans. That's one of the theories. It could be some kind of extra dimensional beings that have the capability of phasing into our space-time, and then they leave a craft or something, or a body. I don't know.
Could be alien.
It could be an alien that's traveling through normal space-time, that took a long journey and got here and crashed, which I think is kind of funny to think that you could make it all that way and then you get here and you crash.
Hey, Stitch made it here.
Right.
I love that movie. But one of the things, we both are friends with Tim Alberino.
Yes.
And I, by the way, plug his book Birthright. I think it's an amazing read on this topic. But one of the things that when we talk about non-human intelligence is predating Noah's flood, pre-diluvial time period, or antediluvial time period would be technology that we might have had on Earth that
Right.
came celestial, like from heaven through the Watchers, was traded by the Watchers with mankind to give us knowledge of war and weapons and all this stuff. and some of those technologies may have survived the flood and have been not come from outer space, but actually been here all along.
Yeah,
and explains a lot of the megalith structures and things like that. So that's one area that I'm super interested in, and it's a compelling case.
Me too. I mean, that's part of this whole UAP topic that has kind of kept me interested. Is this just kind of how if this is true, how it may either support or dismiss the biblical narrative. To me, it absolutely supports the biblical narrative, because the Bible, at the end of the day, talks about creatures that, whether they're called cherubim or seraphim, the generic term is angels. They come and visit people. They're clearly not from planet Earth. The Bible's very
extraterrestrial,
and by definition, they're extraterrestrial. They're outside the planet. So the question is, do they still exist? I don't know. What do they look like? Do they look like the aliens that we describe and see today? Maybe. I don't know. I would love to get my hands on one, or to meet one. But
have you heard through any of this? Have you heard of any actual biological, like living biological beings being part of any programs or still around?
Yeah, there's all kinds of rumors, whether it was from Roswell or the recent event that happened in that was being reported that happened in Brazil, where there was a crash in Brazil that there were 3 aliens. I think one of them was taken to the local hospital. We had a surgeon who came forward and who like examined the alien.
Imagine that shows up in the ER. Like
right. And then and he came and testified after years of trying to be silent about it and worried about his career and losing his license if he came publicly forward. But he, and then the pathologist who studied some samples that were taken from either the aliens or people that had made contact with them or were scratched by them. So that he had information to come forward about bacteria that has never been seen on planet Earth before. So it's interesting. I mean, there's all kinds of, yes, to answer your question, there are reports that this occurs. Even David Grusch, the UAP whistleblower that came forward in the hearing, said that we have quote unquote biologics. I don't like what does that mean?
Yeah.
Bodies. Yeah. I mean, I spoke to one of the most wild conversations I've ever had was, and it was not in a official hearing, but it was in a kind of a meeting that we had with people like Lou Elizondo and Eric Davis. And Eric Davis said to me, and you can watch this video, he said that we've identified 4 different species of aliens. And he went on to name them. And I mean, I didn't drop my jaw, but my jaw was dropping.
I seen that interview with you. Yeah, it's one of them was the reptilian and
right,
and yeah,
the insectilids and the Nordics, like,
yeah,
and then the grays.
Yes, those are the 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So fascinating stuff. Again, it's interesting, but what I want to every time in these conversations, I say, all right, you said that, now prove it. Right? Prove it, and I've yet to be proven anything. Yeah. I mean, other than the videos that I've seen recently,
with the technology
that is a technology that I can't explain, but it's blurry videos of objects that are moving at incredible speeds and are doing things that our conventional aerospace, vehicles cannot pull off. So but what is it? I do not know.
So you mentioned this. I want to kind of put a pin in it. You did say you have a site visit scheduled.
Yes.
And that's through the DoD. Can you say?
No, I'm not going to say anything more about it.
Yeah.
Look, they know that I'm coming, so I'm sure they're going to move everything anyway.
Yeah.
But the less that I say, the better. At this time, so
putting ET in the closet.
Right.
Congressman's coming here. Let's.
Right.
Yeah.
And
this could be dressed like.
And lately, it was brought up, and I forget half the things that the conversations that I've had, because I've had so many conversations with people. I forget what's been made public and what hasn't. But I felt comfortable saying this, but I've heard this in a secure setting, that there's an object that another country has that is a friendly country to the United States, but not exactly easy to get to, and that this object is so big that they had to build a building around it.
Yeah.
And that the building has its own cover. There are people that work there that have no idea that this is even part of this building.
I heard it's South Korea, but
I cannot say. But at the end of the day, that may be. They're going to probably move everything else in every location that I go to, but that one supposedly they can't move.
Yeah. Well, at least then you would know what you're looking for, right? Other people might not notice it, but
right. Well, we'll kind of know if they turn me down to say you can't go there.
Yeah.
Right. You can go to all the other places, but you can't go there. That may be the first clue.
Yeah. I want to pivot unless there's anything that we missed on that.
I truly think that Dan Farah, who did the recent movie The Age of Disclosure, when he was interviewed, he said, "Look, this president has an opportunity, and he has the moxie and the type of makeup because he's the people's president.
Yeah.
He's the president that doesn't. He's not like George H.W. Bush, who came from the CIA and wants to and sees the American people as an obstacle." Trump is a man of the people. He's the disclosure president. What better person to go to the microphone if it's any of this is true and tell the world? I mean, it will be the most historic speech in the history of the world, right? And
especially if it delivers some receipts.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think he has the ability to do.
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm intrigued and tuned in. I'm going to be continuing to pester you on staying looped in with this, especially as developments. If you're able to share any developments as they come, I'd love you to be able to get that to our audience.
Okay.
One of the things that I was super fascinated to know that you worked on because it was DOGE, Department of Government Efficiencies. That's right, Department of Government Efficiencies. Mm-hmm. Elon headed it up, and they brought in some of the brightest young minds of our country to come in, like 20-something-year-old kids that just knew how to get access to this information, and so much was uncovered that made it to the public. What was the biggest shocking thing that you saw, which was a just grossly misuse of our taxpayer dollars?
I think the USAID funds were probably the most absurd. But yeah, I mean, there was the fact that we were funding, whether it was like transgender comic books in some countries. And I mean, at one point we had an entire laundry list of some of the most insane things.
Yeah.
And they were all over in other countries. Like we funded a drag queen show or parade in another country. Like, what are we doing? Funding?
Yeah.
Why are we sending money to these other countries? But of all things, like, why are we're basically peddling to the rest of the world our perversions?
Yeah.
In America, and I talked to diplomats from other countries who were offended at some of the practices and the strings that came with the money that was being sent to their countries, because there's a lot of these countries that are not as secular or worldly as the United States. They're insulted to have to fund, for example, a Planned Parenthood in their country, or to fund some drag queen story hour in their country.
We're influencing their culture with U.S. taxpayer dollars.
That's right.
And meanwhile, I can tell you, like, from me personally, where I said this is something I do hosting this show, but Mighty Oaks Foundation, which we founded 15 years ago, we're not a veteran service organization, nonprofit. We have to raise about $8 million a year. We've served over 500,000 veterans and first responders. And we're one of like over 50,000 veteran service organizations, not to mention all the other nonprofits in the country that have to go out and raise money to do the work. And the reason nonprofits exist is we're doing the work that the government has either can't or failed or not willing to do, which is doing Christ-centered recovery and resiliency programs. The government hasn't chosen to do that. We're doing that, and I haven't got a government dollar in 15 years, but yet some body that's doing a Planned Parenthood in Venezuela or wherever, and a gay comic book in Peru, they get funding. That was a real slap in the face to all of us who, especially in the veteran service organization, who work so hard to take care of our veterans.
It's a slap in the face to every U.S. taxpayer, but also to what's really crummy is how little we pay our our military personnel.
Yeah.
How little we pay them because we claim to not have the money, but yet we have the money to throw at all this other garbage. And it's not a little bit of money. It's billions of dollars that we're throwing around. It's just disgusting. The other thing that was really disgusting is to see what was happening inside of our borders. The fact that we were funding these NGOs that were helping people migrate here across the border illegally, and that was pretty disturbing. Now, from my background in IT, I keyed in on one of the things that the Doge group did that was very helpful, which is identify software systems that we have in place or we paid for and paid tons of money for, that have never been put into implementation, or haven't had a single person log into in years, right? So the fact that we're paying these huge IT contracts, that's within my wheelhouse because I used to work in that industry.
Right.
And there's no one more. It's just a good example, firsthand example for me of how wasteful the government is with taxpayer dollars.
And some of it's being used for political influence, like media, or we call it media propaganda,
Right.
Towards the left, and it was all leaning one side.
Yes.
And then and then you said inside the borders, you have things that just would happen with the Somali daycare things. And
That's right.
can you talk about that? The Somali, what you know about the
the-
Somali
the,
daycare?
the level of fraud within our welfare system. And look, that's what makes it easy for them to defraud the government and to defraud the American taxpayer is you put some really, really, affectionate name around it, right?
'Cause we're a compassionate culture.
We're compassionate. And so when you say, this money is going to serve underserved children in food deserts or whatever, people go, well, I can't cut that, right? Like whenever anybody's saying, well, that's a wasteful program, well, just look at the title of the program. Nobody wants to cut a program that has that kind of name, and yet that's where you hide all the fraud, right? Is in something that seems like a very noble program.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of battle with some pushback on that, and kind of making I would say it's deliberately distracting from the exposure of this fraud, waste, and abuse. But the things like saying that Doge has hurt the medical and cancer research,
Right.
it's just all distractors, right?
It's absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, they identified $500 billion easily in waste that we could get rid of.
$500 billion.
$500 billion annually.
And that's just a start. That's just within 6
Right.
months, right?
Right. I think that he felt like they could get to $1 trillion or more. I think at one point Elon even thought they could find $2 trillion. And I have no doubt if this country was run like a real business, if Elon came in and like ran it like he did like with Twitter and said, we're going to figure out a way to be profitable, or in this term in the United States, we're going to figure out a way to start paying down our debt and not taking out more debt. I'm pretty sure we could find more efficient ways of doing things. Look, I think that government should do few things, but do them well. Yeah. And we don't, instead we try to do everything and we don't do it very well at all.
Yeah, I kind of thought of it like this, and I've explained it like this. President Trump is not a politician; he's a business guy. And if I was, I've run businesses, and you have as well. Like if I take over a business and I'm hired as a CEO, and that business is financially failing, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a guy like you, get a CFO, and we're going to do a financial audit, and we're going to look at where we're, where are we spending efficiently, where we're wasting money, how we can tighten it up financially to make that business survive. And that's essentially what President Trump did. He brought Elon in to be the CFO and like give us a financial audit, like how can we run this business, this country more efficiently.
Right.
And I couldn't understand how Americans.
And if it weren't for politicians and politics, they would have been so much more successful.
Yeah.
But so I'll never forget when the speaker brought Elon into the Republican conference, and everybody was falling over themselves to want to get close to him, get a selfie with him. He spoke to the conference about Doge. Everybody's excited. I was super excited. But then what was funny is the most moderate big spenders went to the microphone and were like, trying to get FaceTime with Elon. And one of them even said, "I would love it if you would retweet me." It's like, really? But at the end of the day, so they were going to the microphones. These are the very same people who just a week ago voted to exacerbate our Social Security fund by adding more programs to that we can't afford. Same people that refused to cut anything out of the appropriation bills, voted against those appropriation cuts that would have actually helped us reduce our deficit. They want the same people, right? Go to the microphone to basically get FaceTime with Elon. And I'll never forget, Chip Roy goes to the microphone from Texas and doesn't care what the rest of the conference thinks of him. He says to Elon, he's like, "I love what you're doing. It's awesome. But you just need to know that your real problem is in this room." And then he rattled off a list of about a dozen recent votes where we had the opportunity to do the very things that Doge is talking about. Because look, a lot of the things that were identified by Doge had already been identified by the Office of Inspector Generals or auditors who had gone through and figured out where some of the waste is. Doge was kind of taking a lot of that and then elevating it. So we had been attempting to try to do this and had been shut down by our own party. And Chip Roy was pointing that out. And boy, everybody was so angry. But he called him out. He called him out for what the truth is. And we just saw that carry out recently because the program, the National Endowment for Democracy, which was identified as one of the biggest fraud programs that there is in the federal government. And it's got a great name, Endowment for Democracy, right? But Elon pointed out all the corruption within this program, that it's a wasteful program. I mean, it's really a fraud program. And so Trump cut it. He defunded it. He wasn't sending any money to the National Endowment for Democracy. Guess what the Republican conference does? We put it in our appropriation bill to refund it. And then whenever we, myself and other conservatives, members of the Freedom Caucus, got an amendment on the floor to reverse that and to defund it and back up President Trump, we lost that vote. And so when people are frustrated and say, "Well, what did Elon accomplish?" Well, I would say he accomplished a lot. Like it's significant, but he could have accomplished a hell of a lot more if he had Republicans that actually did what they campaign the way what they say when they campaign.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, Eli Crane and I talked about this yesterday. I mean, you're here. You're not here to fall in rank and file for the Republican Party. You're here to represent your constituents.
Yes.
And what's being done with their taxpayer dollars.
I'm a Christian first. I'm a conservative second. And I'm a Christian, and then I'm a U.S. citizen second, and I'm a conservative because it's the right political philosophy. But that's how I make my decision matrix and those priorities. And I'm not here to make friends in this town. I'm here to save this country. Yeah. I gave up a great life and a very out of the spotlight. Yeah. Where you don't have people like cussing you out at the airport while you're waiting to get on your commercial flight, right? So I gave up that life because I truly believe this country needs saving.
Yeah, it does. And these people like you that are willing to, I mean, this is the way our founders meant it. People to come outside of business, right? Not career politicians that want to be politicians as a occupation, but someone to come outside of industry to represent their community and constituents, to come in here and serve and represent them, and then go back at some point, right? I mean, it's the way it's supposed to be, and it's the way our founders intended it.
I agree.
Too many career politicians, career-minded people that they want to make the best life for themselves from being up here. That's leads me to one of my next questions is political profiteering here in Washington, D.C. You see so many people come here, barely can afford to run a campaign. They had no net worth, and then they leave here worth millions of dollars. Right now, there's a House committee investigation with Ilhan Omar, who supposedly, I don't know the numbers exactly, so can be fact checked on this, but supposedly she started with zero net worth, and now she's worth over $30 million. What happens in those cases? Like, what's the House do about that?
I think that, so a lot of times they'll say, well, we need to ban stock trading. I think that insider trading is illegal. We just don't investigate it. And I'm glad that we're finally investigating Ilhan Omar, but they need to investigate any member that's being reported for doing kind of insider trading. Now, I will say most rank and file members never get insider information. I never get insider information. I'm not on the Intelligence Committee. I'm not on House Armed Services. I'm not one of the Gang of Eight. So I'm never in anytime I'm learning about something, like whenever I am in a hearing about AI and I learn about some new advanced technology, it's on C-SPAN. The whole world sees it at the same time that I'm learning about it, right? So you don't really, most of us never get any kind of behind the closed door insider information. So I just kind of want to put that out there. But it is your, the people that the public should be paying attention to and really put a microscope over are the people that are the anomalies, like where somebody's.
Do those numbers sound right? Have you heard this?
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah. Where someone is, has came here with very little money and somehow it has become better than Warren Buffett at investing, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that should be looked at. And then, but we should look, it's already illegal to do insider trading for any individual in America. They just need to have a team of people focused on any reports of members of Congress that are doing it.
Is there any team like that in place, or?
I don't know. There's not really. Okay. I mean, you would have to, and it's got to be stood up, and it needs to be funded, and there needs to be give them the ability to kind of look into stuff.
Yeah, some kind of accountability and oversight. I mean, with her right now, there's an investigation taking place. Who's leading that investigation?
I think it's Pam Bondi's office. The Department of Justice is leading that. So hopefully they are able to come to some conclusion. There's other ways that people become wealthy. You could write a book. That's a legitimate way. I mean, they're kind of, and if it really goes crazy, which most members, no one buys a politician's book.
That's what I was gonna say. I've written several books, and I sell a lot of books, and I'm like probably net zero on books. Books are just not profitable.
Right. It's interesting, like a lot of farming is an exemption. There's a lot of people who are farmers, or you can be a medical doctor, you can still practice, but I can't, I had to sell my private business to become a member of Congress because they said it was a conflict, right? And anybody in it has to give all of that up. But yeah, it's hard to become, most of us came into Congress with wealth.
Yeah.
Right. And are barely holding on to the wealth that we had because the income is, I mean, it's a great salary in America. It's an amazing, it's a great salary.
$170,000 a year.
Right. And I'm not trying to say, but when you're used to making more, it certainly can be a sacrifice.
Yeah. Farming. I'm like, what the heck is she forming? Somali daycares? I don't know.
Right.
I'm just kidding. But well, I really hope some accountability comes to that area. Man, you mentioned your family. One of the things that happens here in DC is, like you said, you give up this lifestyle. You're a successful business. You came here. I love seeing people like you that came from something and actually went backwards because you're doing it to serve. That sacrifice that you personally make, it tells a lot. It shows a lot of why you're here, and the big motives are important. But behind you, like, your wife, I'm looking across behind you. You got a beautiful family there, wife and children. They sacrifice too, and I just want to ask, like, those viewers listening, the American people that are watching us right now, like, how can they be praying for you and your family as you continue to serve us in this position?
So I would say, I mean, prayer works, and I can feel it. I've never felt the impact of people's prayers on my life more than the last 3 years that I've been in Congress. Like, I can see God working. There's been moments where I've tried to take like personal credit for something, and I felt that soft voice say, "Hey, that wasn't you, that was me. Just don't get a big head about that." Right? And so God, I do think that God is, the prayer works because God is covering me in a level of protection that I've not experienced before. And so, but my number one goal is that I don't want to be a different person. I don't want this place to change me. That's why every week I do sleep in this office. I don't want to set roots in this town. And every week I get out of here as fast as I can. And I go home and I see my family, and I go to church on Sunday morning and talk to real people. And then I come back to the circus on Mondays. So it's but I need that kind of to keep grounded and to keep my sanity.
Yeah. I'd also encourage those listening to, I mean, these guys are out here serving, and we look at them in a different way, like the privileged lifestyle. I don't know who each person listening as congressional representative is, but if they're good and here for the right reasons, then let them know that. Send you. I always encourage, like, send a. We always write you guys when we want something and upset, but words of encouragement actually matter. So encourage your representatives that are out doing the right thing.
And I get that a lot. I mean, I often will have people that will say that they'll look at me and they'll say, whether I'm like a store like Hobby Lobby or something like that. I had a guy come up to me and say, "Are you Eric Burlison?" And when somebody says that, I know this conversation can go one of two ways.
They love me or hate me.
They love me or hate me because I'm a very, very I'm very staunch in my beliefs, and so they either are going to cuss me out or they're going to say, I'm a fan, right? And so I love talking to people, and love it when people approach me, and generally I would say most of the people that come to talk to me or introduce themselves are supporters.
That's great. But I can tell you, I'm thankful for guys like you that are up here doing the service. I have two short questions that I want to close with because I want to respect your time. One is, with the release of the Epstein files, I have so many of my viewers and supporters and friends that are Christians and conservatives. They're so upset right now, and they want something to be done. They're frustrated. Like, what would you say as a Christian, as a conservative, that they should be doing? What perspective, like mindset should they have as they navigate through this, and the frustration they have? Like, it's really disturbed a lot of people reading stuff about children being tortured and killed and sexually abused. It's disturbing, and so people are like really upset. Like, what would you say to them?
I'd say that we're finally getting a spotlight on the evil that has been hiding for a long time, and we need to continue that, and we need to not lose sight of this. I think we need to pray for the victims. We need to pray for our country. I think our country has a lot to answer for, right? There's a lot of sins as a nation that we have committed over time, abortion being one of them. And I think that we need to continue to give, ask God, invite God to have as much of a role in our personal life. Let God drive our relationships and the way that we conduct ourselves with each other, but pray for our nation as well. One of the neatest things that's happened is seeing, President Trump, in the way that, when he stood and he said that I'm only here because of God saved me from that assassin's bullet. To me, that was a modest way of recognizing the creator of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. When the speaker invited Michael W. Smith recently to play worship music in the basement of the Capitol, I told my staff, I'm like, let's go. Michael W. Smith's going to be here. Let's go. And they said, who?
Yeah.
But I went and I had this chilling moment where I realized I'm in the capital of the United States of America and worshiping God.
Which used to be the largest church gathering at one point.
And it just was an amazing moment. And I think that the more that we can rededicate this nation to God, the more that we can shine a light on sin and on the evil that occurs, and be transparent about when we've failed people. Because I think that we are being transparent. We need to be more transparent that we failed these victims. These young girls who are being victimized by Jeffrey Epstein, that in and of itself is a sin. But what was really awful is that you had, for example, Bill Clinton would be in photos and interacting with them and empowering Epstein in a way, because if you're being victimized, I can't report on this guy. He's connected to the most powerful man on the planet.
Yeah.
Right. And so with the fact that I think that that's one of the most disgusting parts of what happened. And I feel like what was really frustrating is those victims who did go to law enforcement and did report things, and how law enforcement, our Department of Justice, failed them. That's inexcusable.
Yeah. So repent as a nation.
We
Pray,
do.
pray for justice, pray for truth, transparency,
Absolutely.
and for the heart to change. And by the way, I think President Trump just made an announcement that we are rededicating this nation as a Christian nation. Did he say that recently?
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget when he said he's going to do it, but he's going to be, which I already believe it is. But for the President of the United States to make that verbal commitment to do that is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Last question. This is the Resilient Show. As you can see, you got your custom in your office. We got our custom Resilient logo for you. With some of the stuff that I loved about you. But through all you've been through in business and life, serving up here, and all the sacrifice you made, there's got to be some lessons in resiliency that you could share. What is a tip to our viewers on being resilient, living a resilient life?
So perfect timing. So this morning I was in a Bible study, and we were covering Romans 5, and we were talking about how it connects with Exodus, and there's a connection there, and that is that in that passage, I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically saying that that we celebrate the suffering because suffering brings perseverance, and perseverance brings character, and character brings hope, and hope in the Holy Spirit, right?
Yeah.
And so the truth is, we need to. God created this world for us to have this experience, and it means that if we're going to have hope, it's only going to be in those very difficult, tested moments, and it's only then that you're going to demonstrate your character. It's only then that you're going to demonstrate that you are not going to lose your faith. It's only then that you're going to demonstrate that that you'll not shake from God. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is the definition of resilience.
Yeah, that's where you build resilience, in those moments. Yeah, I'm so thankful for you. Thankful for your time here today and what you're doing here on behalf of your district and all Americans in fighting the good fight. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you, sir. God bless. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. I enjoyed that conversation with Congressman Burlison, and I hope you did too. We're going to stay connected with his office, and as he gets into UFO, UAP disclosures, we want to be on top of it, and he made a promise that we're going to be able to be in communication, get that information back to you guys as the viewers. I am super excited for what's to come, especially his upcoming site visit. If you like this episode, please like it, leave a comment for the congressman, share it as far and wide as possible. If you're not already done so, join our Patreon. It is the best way to support this show. Keep it going so every week we get great episodes like this one to you. And by the way, if you watch it on Patreon, you're able to watch it commercial free and sometimes in advance. So God bless and stay resilient. Hey guys, Robichaux here, former Marine, humanitarian, and host of The Resilient Show. And I want to talk to you about Goldco. I do not like to promote anything that I'm not a personal user of. And one of the things I'm really into and have been for a while is just preparing for anything that could go wrong, from natural disasters to security threats to the grid going down and financial instabilities, particularly in our financial markets. And so a long time ago, I made the decision to invest in precious metals, mainly gold and silver, because to have those tangible assets on hand makes you prepared and makes you resilient. And that's what the Resilient Show is all about: informing, educating, and equipping people to be resilient. And I partnered with the #1 precious metals company in the industry because I want to bring the right people not only to my own family dynamic, but make them available to you. If you're looking for gold and silver tangible on hand, then they're the place to go to. They have become an incredible partner, and they have special bonus offers that you can find if you go to chadlikesgold.com. You could get, if you buy with cash, you get 10% extra free gold or silver. You get your own safe at your house. For larger orders, you get a free home safe. There's tons of additional things you can get. So get equipped, be prepared, be resilient by going to chadlikesgold.com. Get your tangible gold and silver today. Hey guys, thank you for watching this episode of The Resilient Show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you hadn't already, please click subscribe so you don't miss any future content. We have so many amazing guests scheduled and you don't want to miss it.